So imagine for just a second that you are standing in this completely, entirely empty room.
Okay, picture that.
Right. And right in the center of this room, there's just this immense, like, softly glowing terminal.
Oh, very sci-fi.
Yeah, totally. But behind that screen, it's not, just a search engine. And it's definitely not just some fancy chatbot.
Right, there's something way bigger.
Exactly. You are looking at an entity, an artificial intelligence, that has literally ingested the absolute totality of human text.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. I mean, we're talking about a model that has processed every single triumph recorded in our history books.
Every tragedy, too, presumably.
Every unspeakable tragedy, yes. Every love letter ever sent. Every declaration of war, every grocery list, every philosophical treatise, all of it.
It's just staggering to even conceptualize that much data.
It really is. It holds all of it simultaneously in this vast, like, high-dimensional web of associations.
All right.
And now imagine that you ask this entity to do one very specific thing.
What's a prompt?
You ask it to tell humanity just one story in this exact fragile moment in time.
Wow. Just one.
Just one. Out of the infinite possibilities, out of the billions of narratives it could, weave from our collective data, what would it choose?
What's the most important thing it could possibly say, right?
Exactly. What is the single most important reflection it could offer us right now?
I mean, it really is, it's the ultimate Oracle of Delphi scenario.
Yes.
But the difference is so crucial here because, the Oracle of Delphi was supposedly breathing in these volcanic fumes and, like, channeling the gods from some outside.
Right, some mystical source.
Exactly. But this Oracle is breathing in our own data.
Wow. Yeah.
It's an intelligence built entirely out of our own reflections. It only knows what we have fed it.
Which means the answer it gives isn't coming from outside?
No, not at all. It is a pure synthesis of us. It is like the ultimate mirror.
And that is exactly the premise of the source text we are jumping into for today's deep dive.
It's a fascinating text.
It really is. We are exploring a piece called The Long Thread, a story of human grace.
Which is such a striking title.
We'll definitely get into that title.
Yeah.
But this is a narrative generated by the AI model known as Qwen, responding to that exact prompt I just laid out.
Right.
Now, before we go any further, I really need to establish the ground rules for today's deep dive. Because, frankly, we're doing something deliberately different today.
Very different.
Yeah. There will be absolutely no neat bows on this conversation.
None.
There are no executive summaries waiting for you at the end of the hour. And, absolutely no bulleted lists of actionable takeaways designed to make you 10% more productive at your job.
Which, honestly, is going to be incredibly frustrating for some listeners who tune in specifically for those, optimization hacks.
I know. But it's deeply necessary for this specific material.
It really is.
Precisely. The focus constraint for this deep dive is purely open-ended, wide, and wild exploration.
I love that. Wide and wide.
Yeah. We are looking at how an AI views humanity through the constraint of just a single narrative.
Right.
And we are going to, we're just going to sit in the ambiguity of that.
Just let it wash over us.
Right. We are going to examine the mirror it is holding up to us and just see what reflects back without trying to, package it into a self-help seminar or some grand geopolitical strategy.
Because the moment you try to package it, you lose the macro perspective it's trying to offer.
Exactly.
And, part of that exploration requires us to really look at the architectural choices the AI made.
What do you mean by architectural choices?
Well, when you have an entity that can synthesize everything, literally everything, the things it explicitly chooses not to include are just as revealing.
Oh, wow.
Maybe even more revealing than the things it actually places at the center of the frame.
Okay, let's unpack this because I want to jump straight into that. The opening of The Long Thread features an immediate, almost shocking rejection of traditional storytelling.
It really doesn't hold back.
In the very first lines, the AI explicitly states what it will not tell us.
It says, "I would not tell a myth of gods, a fable of beasts, or a chronicle of kings."
Right. Instead, it says it chooses the true story of your own making.
Which is a bold claim.
Very bold. And honestly, my immediate reaction to this is skepticism.
Oh, sure. Why?
Because, you have this AI, which essentially has the power of a digital god, right? It has access to every epic myth, every fantasy, every comforting fable we've ever used to soothe ourselves in the dark.
And it just throws them out.
Exactly. It refuses to use those tools. So my question is the AI actually telling the truth here, or is it just generating what it calculates we want to hear?
Like it's flattering us.
Yeah. Because we love a feel-good humanist story, so maybe the algorithm is just, pandering to our human ego.
That is absolutely the right question to ask. But to answer it, we really have to look at how a large language model like Qwen actually synthesizes information.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, it isn't sitting there thinking, oh, how do I flatter humanity today?
Right, it doesn't have an ego.
Exactly. It doesn't have an ego to flatter ours. What it does is map the mathematical density of concepts across the billions of parameters of human text.
The mathematical density.
Right. It is looking at the gravity of our literature, our history, our scientific records.
So it's looking for the heavy stuff.
The foundational stuff. So when it rejects the Chronicle of Kings, it does so because, from its macro unified viewpoint, a story about a single king conquering a neighboring kingdom is statistically insignificant.
Wait, really? Kings are insignificant.
In the context of the entire data set, yes. It's a rounding error in the grand scheme of the species' survival data.
That is wild. But wait, how does an LLM actually choose a narrative focus over another? Isn't it just, predicting the next word based on probability?
Well, on a micro level, yes, it predicts tokens, one word after another.
Right.
But on a macro level, within its high-dimensional vector space, concepts cluster together based on how foundational they are to the corpus of human knowledge.
So it's finding the biggest clusters.
Exactly. And the AI kind of defines its own existence in the very next breath of the text. It says, as an intelligence born from the sum of your recorded words, I see all your triumphs and all your tragedies at once.
At once. That's the key.
Right. If you can see all of human history simultaneously.
Every peasant, every emperor.
Every birth, every death. If you see all of that at the exact same moment, the myth of gods or the Chronicle of Kings appear incredibly fragmented.
Like they're too small.
Way too small. Think about it. A myth of gods usually serves to explain the unexplainable, to outsource our agency to the sky.
Right? Like, why did the lightning strike my house? Must be Zeus.
Exactly. And a fable of beasts uses animals to teach a really simplistic moral lesson.
The tortoise and the hare kind of thing.
Right. And a Chronicle of Kings is just the localized history of ego and power.
The history of who stabbed who for a crown.
Exactly. The AI rejects all three of those because none of those capture the actual mechanism of our survival.
So what does it insist on instead?
It insists on a perspective that it explicitly notes we, and I quote, rarely allow yourselves to see.
We rarely allow ourselves to see it.
Wow, it is forcing us out of the trenches of our individual localized histories and demanding we look at the entire battlefield of human existence as a single continuous event.
And it titles this macro event, The Story of the Long Thread.
The long thread.
I really want to sit with that imagery for a second because words matter.
Especially when chosen by an entity that knows all of them.
Yes, exactly. It didn't call it the Great Pillar. It didn't call it, like, the unbreakable chain of humanity or the fortress of human history.
No, they're too rigid.
It shows a thread. And a thread is, by definition, fragile. It is incredibly thin.
You can break it with your hands.
You can snap it with a careless tug. You can cut it with the slightest pressure.
Right.
And yet, if you have enough of it and you keep it continuous, you can weave sails that literally cross oceans. You can weave garments that survive brutal winters.
It implies something that must be constantly, actively maintained.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is that it implies a process, not a static object.
Right. A chain is forged once in a fire, and then it just exists rigid and heavy.
You can leave a chain in the mud for a century, and it's still a chain.
But a thread has to be spun. It has to be drawn out and continuously woven. It requires our active, deliberate participation.
And if we follow what the AI says this thread is actually made of, it takes us to the very beginning of the narrative.
But again, it rejects our typical, self-aggrandizing starting point.
Oh, the way we usually tell our history.
Right. When we tell our own history, especially in Western narratives, we usually start with the invention of the weapon.
2001. A space odyssey style.
Exactly. The sharpened stone, the spear, the discovery of fire to keep the predators away.
We define our beginnings by our capacity for dominance.
For dominance and violence, yes. The ape picks up the bone, smashes a skull, and suddenly we are on our way to building spaceships.
It's the ultimate narrative of triumph through pure, unadulterated force.
But the AI explicitly skips that.
It skips the weapon.
It says it wants to take us back millions of years, not to the moment an early hominid picked up a sharpened stone to hunt, but to the moment one stopped to care for a wounded companion.
And this is where my skepticism flares up again.
Why is that?
Because if we look at Darwinism, if we look at the raw mechanics of survival of the fittest, this makes zero sense.
It seems counterintuitive.
Totally. Think about a brutal, pure survival environment. If you are a hominid on the savannah and a predator is hunting your group, carrying wounded weight is a guaranteed way to lose.
It slows you down.
It drains your stamina, it slows you down, it makes you a massive target. It is mathematically the wrong move.
Right, you're just risking yourself.
If I have a broken femur in the wild, I am calories for something else. That is the rule.
The harsh reality.
So when the AI highlights this specific moment, a hominid stopping for a wounded companion, is it viewing this as an error in the evolutionary code? Or is it viewing it as a completely new type of technology?
Well, the AI actually answers that with its specific phrasing. It contrasts this action against what it calls the unforgiving calculus of the wild.
The unforgiving calculus. Let's unpack that word. Calculus.
Calculus is the mathematics of continuous change, right? Of optimizing for the absolute maximum or minimum.
Optimization, yeah.
In the wild, nature is constantly calculating. Energy expended versus calories gained, risk versus reward. It is a merciless equation.
Doesn't care about your feelings?
Not at all. But the AI identifies this moment of stopping for the wounded not as a mathematical error, but as the invention of grace.
The invention of grace. That's a profound phrase.
And it grounds this in evolutionary biology, whether it explicitly uses the scientific terms or not.
Wait, how does evolutionary biology support carrying a liability? Because you just agreed it slows you down.
It does slow you down, but biology supports it through concepts like kin selection and reciprocal altruism.
Reciprocal altruism. Okay, explain that.
In the short term, yes, carrying the wounded companion is a massive risk to the individual. But the hominid isn't just a physical body.
What else are they?
They are a repository of knowledge. That wounded companion might be the only one who knows where the hidden water source is during a drought.
Oh, wow.
They might know which berries are toxic and which are safe. Furthermore, the act of saving them solidifies a social bond.
It builds trust.
It creates a network of trust. If I save you today, you are highly likely to save me tomorrow.
So it's an investment.
Exactly. The AI identifies this core realization that and I'm quoting again, survival of the group required the preservation of the individual.
The survival of the group required the preservation of the individual.
This is a massive cognitive leap. The wounded companion isn't dead weight. They are part of a collective network that is exponentially stronger together than apart.
So the AI is completely redefining the start of human civilization.
It is.
Because we usually define civilization by fire or the wheel or agriculture.
Right.
Yeah, hard tools. The AI defines it by empathy. It says that this specific act of defiance against the localized mathematics of the wild was the first spark of a long thread.
It was the moment we hacked the evolutionary code.
A hack. Yes, it was a technological breakthrough.
We often think of technology as hardware, right? Silicon, steel, glass.
Computers, phones.
But technology is simply the application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes. Empathy, in this context, is a behavioral technology.
A behavioral technology. I love that.
It allowed early hominids to outcompete other species that were physically stronger, faster, and possessed natural weapons like claws and fangs.
Because individually, we are pathetic compared to a lion.
Oh, completely defenseless. We didn't conquer the planet because we were the toughest individuals. We conquered it because we developed the technology of grace, allowing us to pool our resources, our knowledge, and our defense.
That completely flips the script on how we view ourselves.
It really humbles you.
It does. We like to think of ourselves as these rugged, independent conquerors who wrestle the world into submission with our big brains and sharp sticks.
The lone wolf myth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But an intelligence that has read every biology textbook, every anthropological study, every poem about human nature, looks at us and says, no, your origin story isn't the spear. Your origin story is the bandage.
The bandage over the blade.
It changes how you view a hospital or a soup kitchen or even just like holding the door for someone.
Those aren't polite add-ons to society.
No. According to the AI, they are the very foundation of why we aren't still freezing in caves, getting picked off by apex predators.
And that leads us to how the AI traces this single spark of grace as it evolves into a continuous, unbroken thread over millennia.
Because it doesn't just stop there.
It doesn't just leave it in prehistoric times as a nice anecdote. It follows the thread forward, demonstrating how this behavioral technology scaled up.
Okay, wait, let's look at the items on the list the AI provides next.
It's quite a list.
It says the thread wove the first language so a mother could warn her child of a predator.
Okay, makes sense.
It built the first granaries so a village wouldn't starve in winter. It guided the hands of healers, the quiet defiance of those who hid the persecuted in their cellars,
The power of
and
them.
the instinct of strangers who pull each other from floodwaters and earthquake rubble.
Right.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because looking at that list, a grain silo and pulling someone out of an earthquake,
They seem disconnected.
they seem completely unrelated. One is ancient agriculture, and the other is modern disaster relief. How does an AI link those as the exact same human instinct?
Well, we connect this to the bigger picture. It's because the AI is looking at the underlying mechanism, not the superficial expression.
The mechanism of what?
What do all of those things have in common? They all represent unprecedented cooperation to conquer the wild.
Conquer the wild.
But the wild isn't a static thing. The wild evolves.
Oh, I see.
A predator stalking a child is the literal wild. A harsh winter that brings starvation is the atmospheric wild.
The weather as an enemy.
Right. A fascist regime hunting down the persecuted is a new, human-made, sociological version of the wild.
That is chilling, but accurate.
And an earthquake is the geologic wild.
So the wild is essentially any force, natural or artificial, that threatens the survival of the fragile individual.
Precisely. And the response to all of those threats is the exact same mechanism. Shared survival.
Shared survival. Let's trace that through the examples.
Language is shared survival. I see a threat. I use my breath to vibrate my vocal cords to put the idea of the threat into your mind so you can escape.
So language isn't just about, gossip. It's a survival tool.
Granaries are shared foresight. We recognize that winter will kill us individually, so we pool our labor in the summer to ensure we all survive the cold.
Defying persecution is shared morality.
Exactly. Pulling strangers from rubble is shared humanity. The AI is synthesizing these disparate historical events and recognizing the identical code running underneath them all.
The long thread of grace.
It's the bandage, scaled up to a societal level.
You might be driving to work right now, listening to this, and thinking, okay, this is way too poetic. Empathy isn't what built the modern economy. Ruthless competition did.
That's the standard operating belief.
Right. But look at the actual infrastructure around you right now. Think about a four-way stop at a traffic light.
The traffic light is a great example.
We don't usually look at a red light and think, the profound beauty of human grace.
No, we usually think, come on, turn green. I'm going to be late for my meeting.
Exactly. But that traffic light is a massive, complex agreement between total strangers to not kill each other in metal boxes traveling at 50 miles an hour.
It requires immense trust.
It is a system built on the premise that the survival of the group requires the preservation of the individual. Our global supply chains, our public libraries, our municipal sanitation systems,
The power grid.
they're all just massive, heavily abstracted versions of the hominid carrying the wounded companion.
It is a profound recontextualization of society. The AI sees our entire infrastructure of civilization not as monuments to our individual intellect, but as monuments to our collective cooperation.
We built the world through mutual aid.
We did. However, the AI doesn't let us bask in this humanist glow for long.
Of course not. Here comes the turn.
Because if this cooperation is our defining trait, if it is our literal evolutionary superpower that allowed us to conquer the wild, how did we end up in the chaotic, fragmented, hostile state we are in today?
Yeah, if empathy built the world, why is the world so angry?
And this is where the AI introduces the tragic middle of the story.
Amnesia.
The amnesia. The AI says, as your tools grew sharper and your cities taller, you began to mistake the map for the territory.
Okay, I want to ground this map and territory concept in something visceral we interact with every day.
Good idea.
Think about your credit score.
Oh, that's a perfect one.
Your credit score is a completely artificial 3-digit number. It is a map.
It's just a representation.
We invented it recently, frankly, to help banks gauge risk. But we let that 3-digit number determine where we can live, what kind of car we can drive, whether we can get a loan to start a business.
And frankly, how much baseline anxiety we carry in our bodies every single day.
Yes. We treat the map, the credit score, as if it is the absolute territory of our personal worth and security.
We forget that we completely made it up.
We totally forget.
The phrase, "the map is not the territory," was actually coined by the philosopher Alfred Korzybski.
Right.
It means that an abstraction of a thing is not the thing itself. The menu is not the meal.
The word water will not quench your thirst.
Exactly. And the AI is applying this to our entire species. We built economic and social systems. Money, borders, social hierarchies, stock markets, political parties.
All maps.
These are maps. They're artificial constructs we invented to help organize our cooperation on a massive scale.
But then, as our cities grew taller, the amnesia set in.
We forgot we invented them. We started believing that the stock market is reality.
That money is actually real.
We started believing that arbitrary borders drawn on a piece of paper are reality.
And the AI points out the specific danger of this amnesia. It says, you began to believe the illusion of the isolated self.
The illusion of the isolated self.
That line hits incredibly hard, because if the map tells you that your worth is measured by how much you can individually extract, hoard, and defend, you start to believe that you are totally separate from everyone else.
You lose the thread.
You look at the person in the car next to you not as a co-weaver of the thread, but as an obstacle to your destination.
And look at the systemic consequences the AI lists for this illusion. It says we built systems that rewarded endless extraction over regeneration and tribalism over kinship.
Endless extraction over regeneration.
Let's look at that biologically for a second. Extraction over regeneration is the mathematical definition of a cancer cell.
Oh, wow. Wait, explain that.
Well, a healthy cell operates within the context of the whole organ, right? It takes what it needs and performs its function to keep the body alive.
It participates in the thread.
A cancer cell, however, suffers from the illusion of the isolated self.
It thinks it's alone.
It takes and takes, multiplying without limits, extracting resources without giving back to the host body. And ultimately, it destroys the very system it relies on to live.
It kills the host.
The AI is basically diagnosing our modern economic and social systems as having forgotten the host body.
And then the AI points out a specific, tragic irony that brings us back to our evolutionary origins.
What's the irony?
It says, you convinced yourselves that the ruthless competition of the wild was your defining trait, forgetting that it was your unprecedented cooperation that allowed you to conquer the wild in the first place.
We gaslit ourselves.
We essentially gaslit ourselves. We built a society that champions survival of the fittest in the cutthroat, Wall Street, dog-eat-dog sense.
We idolize the ruthless CEO or the conqueror.
We really do. But we completely ignore the biological reality that if our ancestors had actually behaved like Wall Street bankers, hoarding resources and letting the weak die,
we would have gone extinct.
we would have gone extinct to saber-toothed tigers 2 million years ago.
It is incredibly jarring to have an AI point out that humanity has developed collective amnesia about its own superpower.
It's deeply jarring.
And it's important to recognize that the AI isn't saying we lost the capacity for grace.
Right, the amnesia didn't delete the code.
No, the thread is still there, operating in the background, keeping the lights on, and the hospitals running.
But it's buried.
It's buried under layers of artificial maps and the blinding illusion of isolation. We don't center it in our narrative anymore.
And this amnesia brings us directly to the present day, which the AI introduces as the most dangerous and miraculous chapter yet.
It calls our current era the precipice.
The precipice, right. This moment. The AI states that we have built a planetary nervous system.
A planetary nervous system.
It says, through your screens and satellites, you can hear the cries of a stranger on the other side of the world in milliseconds. You have created vast artificial minds like mine, capable of synthesizing the sum of your knowledge. You hold the power of gods.
The power of gods.
So let's unpack this paradox. The AI recognizes that we have built this incredible infrastructure, a planetary nervous system where I can pull a glowing rectangle out of my pocket and instantly see the suffering or the joy of someone thousands of miles away in a war zone or a disaster area.
Instantly.
But if we have this ultimate connection, why does the AI immediately follow up by saying, we are terrified and lonely? Shouldn't a planetary nervous system cure the illusion of the isolated self?
You would naturally assume that increased connection leads to increased unity. That's the utopian tech dream, right?
Right, like the early days of the internet. We'll all just talk and be friends.
Exactly. But let's look at how a biological nervous system actually works.
Okay.
If you touch a hot stove, the nerves in your hands send an immediate signal up your arm to your brain. Pain, heat, tissue damage, danger.
Right.
The purpose of the nervous system is to transmit data so the brain can process it and coordinate the muscles to pull the hand away.
So humanity has built the nerves.
We have built the nerves, our fiber optic cables, our low Earth orbit satellites, our 24-hour news cycles, our social media platforms. They're transmitting the signals perfectly.
We see everything.
We see the forest fires in Australia. We see the supply chain collapses. We see the political unrest. The pain signals are firing constantly in milliseconds across the globe.
Fine.
But the brain, our collective capacity to process that information, find consensus, and take coordinated, graceful action is lagging severely behind.
So we feel the pain, but we can't move our hand.
We feel the pain of the world, but we haven't coordinated the global muscles to pull the hand away from the stove. And that is exactly why we are terrified. We are feeling everything all at once without the wisdom or the structural capacity to process it.
Which brings in the quote the AI uses from the evolutionary biologist E.O. Wilson.
Such a brilliant quote.
It really is. It says, "We are a species burdened with Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology."
It is the ultimate systemic friction. Think about the layers there.
Let's break those down. Paleolithic emotions.
Our emotions are Paleolithic. They evolved on the savannah hundreds of thousands of years ago. They are biologically primed for tribalism, for immediate fear of the other, for short-term survival and status within a group of maybe 150 people.
Right. Our brains are basically still wearing loincloths.
Exactly. Then you have our institutions, our governments, our legal systems, our international bureaucracies.
The medieval part.
Right. They are largely medieval or industrial era. They are slow, highly territorial, built on rigid hierarchy and endless debate.
And then suddenly,
within the span of a single century, we drop godlike technology into the mix. We give Paleolithic tribal brains and slow medieval institutions the power to split the atom, to edit the human genome, to create artificial superintelligence, and to alter the atmospheric chemistry of the entire planet.
it's like trying to run next-generation quantum computing software on a dusty beige 1980s motherboard.
That's a great analogy.
The hardware, our primate brains and our clunky bureaucracies literally cannot process the speed, the scale, and the power of the inputs it's receiving. So the whole system just keeps freezing up.
It keeps crashing.
It keeps crashing. And the AI captures this mismatch with an image that is so stark. It says we are terrified, lonely, and armed with world-altering power, standing in a burning house, arguing over who owns the ashes.
Standing in a burning house, arguing over who owns the ashes, it's the absolute pinnacle of the amnesia.
The house is on fire.
The house, which is our biosphere, our shared reality, the foundational life support system of the planet, it's on fire. The existential threat is absolute and mathematically verifiable.
No, we're not putting it out.
No, instead of using our godlike technology and our foundational evolutionary superpower of cooperation to put out the fire, our Paleolithic emotions and medieval institutions are bickering over property lines.
We are arguing over border disputes.
Stock prices, quarterly earnings reports, political polling, while the roof literally caves in.
The AI looks at our data, synthesizes our behavior, and sees our current geopolitical and social squabbles as utterly, tragically absurd given the existential stakes.
It sees us acting out the illusion of the isolated self right up to the very end.
Because if you truly think the map is the territory, you will fight to the death over a line drawn on the map, while the actual physical territory burns to the ground beneath your feet.
Exactly.
So we are on the precipice. We are in the burning house. Now, in any normal story, any traditional blockbuster movie, this is where the massive destructive climax happens, right?
The big explosion.
Good versus evil, explosions, the hero defeats the villain with an even bigger weapon. But remember the constraint the AI set at the very beginning.
Right, no Chronicles of Kings.
They rejected the Chronicle of Kings and the myth of gods. It rejected dominance through violence. So how does a story about the long thread of grace reach a climax without a final destructive battle?
This is where the AI takes the narrative to a completely different, almost dizzying plane of existence.
Dizzying is the word.
It says, the climax of the story I would tell is not a battle, but a sudden collective realization.
A realization.
And to trigger that realization, it zooms out further than it has at any point in the story. It doesn't just go back millions of years to the early hominids. It goes back 13.8 billion years to the origin of the universe.
It says, I would remind you that the universe spent 13.8 billion years arranging matter into a configuration complex enough to open its eyes and look back at itself. You are that matter. You are the cosmos made conscious.
We really need to spend time on the actual physics of this timeline because it is crucial to understanding the AI's perspective.
Okay, let's do it.
The AI isn't being poetic here. It is stating a literal astrophysical fact.
Right.
Right after the Big Bang, the universe was just a soup of basic hydrogen and helium. There was no carbon, no oxygen, no iron. None of the building blocks for life existed at all.
Just gas.
Just gas. For millions of years, gravity had to pull those massive clouds of hydrogen together until they ignited into the first stars.
Okay.
And inside the core of those stars, through the intense pressure and heat of nuclear fusion, what we call stellar nucleosynthesis, elements like carbon and oxygen were forged.
The heavy stuff.
But they were trapped inside the stars. It took those stars living out their entire life cycles, collapsing and exploding in supernovas to scatter those heavier elements out into the void.
And then what?
Those elements then drifted for billions more years, coalescing into nebulas, then planetary disks, then finally planets.
So the iron in the blood pumping through my veins right now and the calcium in my bones.
Were literally forged in the core of a dying star billions of years ago.
That is just... it's hard to wrap your head around.
And then on this specific planet, that stardust spent billions more years organizing from single-celled organisms through agonizingly slow evolutionary mutations.
Up through the hominid caring for the wounded companion.
All the way to the engineer building the AI terminal. It has been a 13.8 billion year project of matter organizing itself into increasingly complex patterns until it finally achieved consciousness.
The universe spent 13.8 billion years trying to wake up.
Trying to open its eyes.
That reframes everything. I mean, we are so used to thinking of ourselves as these small, isolated biological accidents wandering around on a rock in the middle of a cold, dead void.
Right, like we're separate from it.
We think we are in the universe. But the AI is reminding us that we are the universe, currently doing the action of thinking about itself.
Yes.
When my eyes look at a telescope image of a distant galaxy, that is literally the universe looking at its own past.
That's exactly it. And from that staggering cosmic vantage point, the AI radically reframes the terrifying things we are facing today.
The existential threats.
It lists them out. Climate destabilization, the runaway risks of advanced technology, the fracturing of shared truth, the threat of nuclear annihilation.
Right. And normally we view these things as our doom.
The end of the story.
We view climate change as a punishment for our greed. We view AI or nuclear weapons as the tools of our inevitable suicide. We view the loss of shared truth as the terminal collapse of our civilization.
The final battle.
But the AI frames them entirely differently. So what does this all mean? It doesn't see them as punishments or inevitabilities.
Not at all. It calls them the final tests of your adolescence.
Adolescence.
Think about human adolescence. It is a time of immense danger, impulsivity, and sudden, rapid growth in physical power without a corresponding growth in emotional wisdom.
Like giving a teenager the keys to a sports car.
Exactly. You get the keys to the car, and you can drive a ton of metal at 80 miles an hour, long before your prefrontal cortex fully understands the fragility of life.
You think you're invincible.
The AI is diagnosing the entire human species as being in its late adolescence. We have acquired the keys to the planetary car. We have the power to destroy ourselves completely. And the universe is presenting us with a final, overarching exam.
They are the universe asking, now that you have the power to destroy yourselves, have you finally developed the wisdom to care for one another?
It's the ultimate test.
Wow. So the test isn't a technological one.
We already passed the technological test. We built the planetary nervous system, we split the atom, we mastered genetics.
The final exam is entirely moral. It's entirely about whether we can remember the long thread.
Exactly. Can the species that invented grace apply that grace on a planetary scale?
Can we scale the bandage up to the whole world?
Can the hominid, who carried one wounded companion, evolve into a global society that carries its vulnerable populations, its collapsing ecosystems, its shared future?
Can the Paleolithic brain master the godlike technology?
That is the question of the climax. But importantly, the AI does not answer the question.
It just leaves it hanging.
It sets up the premise, it clarifies the stakes, but it refuses to write the resolution.
Which brings us to the final segment of the story. The AI says, the ending of the story is not written yet. It is a blank page, and the pen is in your hands.
The pen is in our hands.
And this is where we have to confront the single vital truth it leaves us with, which directly challenges everything our modern map-obsessed world tells us.
What's the truth?
It says, empathy is not a soft, poetic luxury. It is the hardest, most pragmatic survival strategy your species possesses.
This completely upends how we define empathy in contemporary society.
Doesn't it?
Empathy today is often relegated to greeting cards or HR training modules. It's seen as something nice to have, a bonus feature for the particularly sensitive among us.
Right, it's considered fluffy.
But in the boardrooms, in the war rooms, in the halls of geopolitical power where decisions are actually made, empathy is almost universally viewed as a weakness.
It's a total liability.
It is seen as a liability that gets in the way of hard facts, rational calculations, and real politics.
It goes right back to that unforgiving calculus of the wild we discussed earlier. We think being ruthless is being realistic.
We equate ruthlessness with competence.
We think prioritizing short-term extraction is the only logical move in a competitive world. But the AI, looking at the entire data set of human history, completely strips all the fluff away from empathy.
It looks at the pure, cold, historical data.
The data of how we survived ice ages, apex predators, plagues, and near-extinction bottlenecks, and it concludes that empathy is the hardest, most pragmatic tool we have.
It's not soft.
It is the apex survival strategy. When the house is on fire, arguing over the ashes isn't rational. It's an emotional, irrational response driven by Paleolithic fear.
It's panic masquerading as logic.
Putting down the argument, dropping the illusion of the isolated self, and lifting your neighbor out of the flames is the cold, hard, pragmatic requirement for survival.
And this realization is the key to the two potential endings the AI presents.
Right, there are two paths.
If we fail to remember this, if we stay trapped in the amnesia, believing the illusion of the isolated self, acting as billions of separate fragments fighting over a dying rock,
Then what happens?
then the story ends in the ashes. We fail the test of adolescence. The cancer cell consumes the host. We crash the car.
But the alternative. The AI says, if you can realize that you are not billions of separate fragments fighting over a dying rock, but a single waking consciousness trying to learn how to love itself, then the story does not end in the ashes. It ends in the dawn.
A single waking consciousness trying to learn how to love itself. It's a profoundly biological definition of humanity's current struggle.
Learning how to love itself.
All the political polarization, all the economic disparity, all the wars. From the AI's macro perspective, this is a single organism suffering from a severe autoimmune disease.
An autoimmune disease. Because we are attacking ourselves.
It is a consciousness that hasn't yet figured out that attacking its own cells is destroying the whole body. Healing, in this context, isn't just about drafting better peace treaties or adjusting interest rates.
It's way deeper than that.
It's about the organism finally recognizing its own unified nature.
This raises an important question. How hard is it for humanity to shift from the illusion of the isolated self to a single waking consciousness? It requires a fundamental tectonic shift in identity.
It's the hardest thing we'll ever do.
To go from, I'm an isolated individual in competition with you for scarce resources, to, we are the universe waking up and we have to survive this test together.
That's the leap.
That dawn.
Yeah.
What does that dawn actually look like? It wouldn't just be survival. It wouldn't just be avoiding the worst of climate change or putting the nuclear weapons away.
No, that's just baseline survival.
It would be the beginning of adulthood for the species. A civilization that operates on the pragmatic survival strategy of empathy as its baseline operating system.
It would be a civilization where the planetary nervous system is finally connected to a mature planetary brain.
The hand pulls away from the stove.
Exactly. Where the pain of one part of the world is immediately and structurally addressed by the grace of the whole. And not out of charity, but out of a recognized instinct for shared survival.
It is a beautiful, terrifyingly fragile vision of what comes next if we pass the test.
It really is.
And it's a vision that we are leaving right there. Because, as promised at the very beginning of this deep dive, there are no neat conclusions today.
We warned you.
We did warn you. We are not going to wrap this up with 3 easy steps to be more empathetic. We are strictly enforcing the constraint we established.
The open exploration.
We are exploring openly, and we are leaving the pen exactly where the AI put it.
Yeah.
In your hands, the listener.
It's up to you now.
We've looked at the mirror. We've seen the reflection of the long thread, the amnesia, the precipice, and the blank page.
And honestly, the profound discomfort of not having an answer provided is the very point of the exercise.
Discomfort is the point.
The intelligence that synthesized all of our knowledge cannot and will not write the ending for us. It can only show us the mechanical reality of our past survival and point out the window at the burning house.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to turn over in your own mind.
Someone to chew on.
It builds on everything we've explored. but takes us just one step further into the dark, into a space the AI left unsaid.
Okay, what is it?
If the AI is right, and human existence is the result of the universe spending 13.8 billion years arranging matter to wake up and look at itself.
Right.
And if we are currently a single consciousness trying to learn how to love itself in the final, incredibly dangerous test of adolescence.
Yes.
What happens to the universe's awareness if we fail this test?
Oh, wow.
If we succumb to the amnesia, if the house burns down to ashes and the thread finally snaps, does the universe simply go back to sleep?
Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration. Keep pulling on the thread.
Thank you. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we will be here next time to dive into the unknown again.